From the heartbreaking loss of the Challenger and Columbia space shuttles to the devastating accidents that took place during Soviet missions, we'll uncover the stories of bravery, sacrifice, and resilience in the face of unimaginable challenges. In this video, we will explore the haunting and heartbreaking tales of the top 10 saddest spaceflight disasters. Join us on a journey through the cosmos as we delve into the tragic events that have shaped the history of space exploration. Prepare to be moved as we pay tribute to those who ventured into the final frontier, never to return. Let's embark on this emotional odyssey together. Number 10. Valentin Bondarenko died on March 23, 1961. Valentin Bondarenko was in the very first group of men chosen for cosmonaut training in 1960. He could have been Russia's first man in space, but 10 days into a 15-day experiment in a low-pressure altitude chamber, a fire broke out after an alcohol-soaked cotton ball he'd used to clean himself landed on a hot plate. The flames quickly spread through the oxygen-rich environment, leaving him with third-degree burns on most of his body. He died 16 hours later. Number 9. Crash of the VSS Enterprise on October 31, 2014. As part of the Virgin Group, the project took a big hit when Spaceship Two blew up during a test flight over California's Mojave Desert. Spaceship Two is a spaceplane that Virgin Galactic is building so that it can eventually take tourists on commercial suborbital space trips. On Halloween 2014, the company tested one of these ships, the VSS Enterprise, in the Mojave Desert in California. Soon after separating from the launch vehicle, the craft began to fall apart because of an unknown problem in flight. Pilot Peter Seibold was able to get out of the craft and parachuted to safety, but co-pilot Michael Ellsbury was not able to escape and died in the crash. It's hard to believe that anyone could survive a rocket plane crash at the speed of sound. Number 8. Michael J. Adams. After leaving MIT, U.S. Air Force pilot Michael Adams won A.B. Hans Trophy as the best student and pilot in his class at the Air Force Experimental Test Pilot School. There was no doubt that he was on the fast track to becoming an astronaut. In 1966, he joined the X-15 program, which was developing a hypersonic rocket-powered experimental aircraft. Adams had completed 6 successful flights in the X-15 before November 15, 1967. On his 7th and final flight, the plane started spinning violently at Mach 5 and went into a dive. The G-forces were too much for the craft and it broke apart, killing 37-year-old Adams. The U.S. Air Force gave him his astronaut wings after his death. Number 7. IntelSAT 708. IntelSAT 708 was an American communications satellite that was supposed to be launched into orbit by China's Long March 3B rocket on February 15, 1996. The boosters fired and the rocket began its ascent, but because of a design flaw, it went off course within seconds and exploded over a village, lighting up the sky. At first, the Chinese government said that only 6 people were killed, but this was highly disputed because of eyewitness accounts and the size of the blast. Number 6. Apollo 1. One of these days, there will be a mistake in the design of the systems or on the ground that causes an accident. The Apollo program, which brought the first people to the moon, had a sad start to its first mission. In February 1967, Apollo 1 was supposed to take off, sending Gus Grissom, Edward Higgins-White, and Roger B. Chaffee into a low Earth orbit. In January, a fire broke out in the cabin. It took workers 5 minutes to open all the hatches and get to the astronauts, but it was too late. All 3 men died in the spacecraft. The pure oxygen atmosphere and electric arcs from faulty wires caused the fire. All 3 were awarded the Congressional Space Medal of Honor after their deaths. The Apollo 1 fire changed us forever, and we've never forgotten it. Number 5. Vostok 2M rocket explosion March 18, 1980. The Vostok rocket was the Soviet Union's answer to America's Atlas and Titan rockets, which were used to send people and satellites into space. On March 18, 1980, a Vostok 2M was being fueled on its launch pad at the Cosmodrome when it exploded. Over 40 people, mostly young soldiers, were burned to death, and another 6 died later from injuries they got in the blast. the launch pad was so badly damaged that it couldn't be used again for 4 years. Number 4. Soyuz 11. The Soviet Union Soyuz 11 mission was the only one to dock with and enter the world's first space station, Salyut 1. After 22 days on board, cosmonauts Gregory E. Dub and Yuri Gagarin landed on Salyut 1 and lived there. Raval, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Putz-Aya began their trip home in a capsule, made a textbook re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, parachuting safely to the ground. However, when the recovery team opened the hatch, all 3 men were dead. An investigation showed that a pressure release valve had failed, causing a loss of cabin pressure. Since the astronauts didn't wear pressure suits at the time, the men died of asphyxiation within seconds. The 3 were posthumously awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union Medal, and each has a crater on the moon named. Number 3. The Tragedy of Nadelan. The Vostok rocket explosion was not the first launch pad disaster the Soviet Union experienced. About 20 years earlier, in 1960, the Nadelan disaster killed about 100 Russian workers and soldiers. During the development of the ICBM R-16 rocket, a prototype was being prepared for a test flight at the Baikonur Cosmodrome when the second stage engines accidentally went off, killing many military and technical personnel who were standing close to the rocket. Number 2. Space Shuttle Columbia crash, February 1, 2003. We have a disaster with the firing of the Space Shuttle's boosters and liftoff with a lot of mass and international space research experiments. The Space Shuttle Columbia had just finished a 16-day scientific mission around the Earth when it started to re-enter the atmosphere. What NASA and the Columbia didn't know was that during takeoff, a piece of insulation foam had come loose and poked a hole in one of the wings. This let gases into the wing during re-entry, which slowly tore it apart and led to complete control failure. The Columbia broke apart in front of NASA's eyes, killing all 7 crew members. NASA stopped flights for 2 years, and the crew was given the Congressional Space Medal of Honor after they died. Number 1. Space Shuttle Challenger crash, January 28, 1986. In January 1986, everyone was watching the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger on CNN. The crew included 5 astronauts and 2 payload experts, one of whom was a teacher from Concord, New Hampshire named Krista McAuliffe, who would have been the first teacher to go into space after a few delays. The launch was scheduled for the morning of January 28th. 73 seconds after liftoff, with millions of Americans watching, the Challenger broke apart and was gone in an instant. It was found that a cold-related problem caused an O-ring seal in the right engine to fail during liftoff. The shuttle program was put on hold for 32 months while Americans buried the first astronauts to die since the 1960s. That's it for today. Please like and share our videos. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for regular updates. Thanks for watching.